Hey, good morning. Welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. Welcome to the Ozarks. In today's video, I think I'm going to try and link things like the Grand Solar Minimum, Yellowstone Caldera, the tsunami that's going to hit our east coast, New Madrid Fault, California falling into the ocean, many other things of similar nature, and why my place is a mess. All right, cue the intro. It's just not enough. Man, it's nice out here. The downside of this niceness is that the chiggers and ticks are gonna come out. My dogs are already starting to pick up ticks, and that means pretty soon I won't be able to stand out here in the woods like this and shoot a video without getting chiggers, which is kind of a bummer. Hey, my brain goes different places at different times. Y'all know me well enough by now to understand that. And just this morning I was trying to get a handle on the Grand Solar Minimum. And because I've heard a lot of people mention it, some of y'all have mentioned it. And a guy who I respect just did a video recently where he talked about he was putting off planting his garden this time of year because he was worried about the Grand Solar Minimum. My words for what I took from what he said. And so I tried looking it up today, and everything I came to linked it to global warming and said that it's really not going to have any effect on global warming. Mankind is still screwing up the earth, and we're still going to get too hot so that we die. I added that part, but that's like kind of the understood thing. And you know, I used to walk around in, like, when I lived in Kansas, and it would be a really warm November day, like maybe it would shoot up to 70 degrees in November, and I would look around at whoever was around me and I'd go, if this is global warming, I want more of it. Right? I'm not afraid of global warming, never have been. But it strikes me as kind of funny that people are now talking about an ice age. And you know, they've kind of, if you really look at the real science behind it, there's no such thing as man-made global warming. The Earth goes through cycles throughout however long you think the Earth has been around. And it warms up, it cools down, it warms up, it cools down. There's really not a whole lot we're impacting on it in that way. The whole global warming thing started out as a means to control you. That was the real purpose of it. And once things started getting colder, I mean, you know, it's just hilarious when they schedule some kind of global warming conference of all these bigwigs. First of all, they all fly in on their private jets, and then they get their private cars and they have their entourages, so their carbon footprint is huge. And then they get snowed out or iced out or something, you know? It's like, yeah, how do you like this global warming? Give me more of that global warming. But I tried to look it up today, and they just kept trying to link it to global warming and saying it's not a big deal. And yet, and still, there are people on the internet who are like, the sky is falling, Grand Solar Minimum is coming, we're all gonna freeze to death, man. I was reading recently, don't worry, I'm tying this all together. It's my intent to. I was reading recently about pole shift. Didn't know much about pole shift except when I lived in Cali back in the 90s. There were a lot of new agers that were really into it, and it was like, you know, it's doom, man. And I guess there's two kinds of shift. There's like the magnetic shift, which they can prove has happened several times just by the way sediments are lined up or something. And I guess the magnetic shift isn't that huge and isn't such a big deal. This is my understanding. But there's also the possibility, according to some theorists, that the whole crust of the earth, let's say north is this way, the whole crust of the earth could just go whoop slip around the, what is it, the mantle or something, and then all of a sudden, you know, what we call the North Pole now, that part of the Arctic Ocean would then be like in the Tropic of Cancer or something, or Capricorn. I guess it's Cancer's up top, right? And you know, what used to be San Francisco is now at the North Pole. You know, something like that can happen, and evidently that can happen quick. I do believe that has happened quickly. They have found mastodons, woolly mammoths, with buttercups in their mouths, frozen solid. Buttercups don't grow where it's cold. So they were in a warm environment chewing on some buttercups when all of a sudden, bloop, and they froze, right? So that has happened. And so I've been doing some reading about that, and of course there are people, that is their drum that they beat. We got Nibiru, Planet X, the dwarf star, the blue Kachina, all these things, all these people. It's there, man. I saw it coming. I saw it in the sky. And every time I look at their pictures, I'm like, yeah, dude, that looks like anomalies on your camera lens. And, you know, all these people were predicting gloom and doom for Nibiru, and I only see one sun and no planets in my sky right now. But there's a lot of people who are still hanging on to that. If you read a guy, and you should, called Velikovsky, roundly slammed by his academia peers, but man, I think he had something to say about tying some historical events together. And I don't know if he specifically mentioned Nibiru or not, but he certainly mentioned the effects that people think Nibiru could have. It's worth looking at. I read another thing, some recently released CIA document on how the Earth has gone through, I think it was the Earth change thing. I think that's when I was reading the Earth, you know, the shifting of the thing, and about how there was a huge flood back during the, go figure, times of Noah, and then they submitted there was another flood like 1150 BC or 11,000, I don't know, another flood. And they say, yeah, this has happened before, and there's been big floods. Well, clearly there's been big, massive movements of water. One, I believe the Bible, so that's one. But, you know, look at things like the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River did not make the Grand Canyon overnight, you know, or even over millennia by just wheedling it down. That was a lot of water going through there, in my opinion. But people worry about that. California falling into the ocean, San Andreas, Ring of Fire. I mentioned Yellowstone, right? It's New Madrid. And so I constantly get comments, you see it too, and you know, there's people who, again, make their whole channel based on that one thing. And quite frankly, they get a lot of hits. And I'm thinking if I started doing a series of videos on YouTube called Grand Solar Minimum and telling people to prepare, man, because doom is coming, I think I'd get a lot of hits. Cool thing about Grand Solar Minimum for a doomer prophet, prophet of doom, is that there's no set date, right? You could just kind of keep playing that thing out. Same thing with the Earth shifting. Any day now, man. You know, here's the thing. Do the best you can with what you got where you're at, right? I can't worry about all that stuff. I ain't got time for that. There's not a lot I can do about Yellowstone going off. I've moved about as far south as I want to move to get away from it. There's nothing I can do about the tidal waves or the Earth slipping around to the other side, and no one knows where it's going. You know, no one knows what's going to end up as the North and South Pole, according to these theorists. So it's not like you can really prepare for that, other than have basic preparedness, right? Have food and friends and guns, and just be ready to deal with adversity. And so I said I was going to tie this all into why my place is a little messy. Priorities, man. Where are your priorities? What do you want to focus on? I don't want to focus on picking up. I could be spending, you know, this time right now, and this, by the way, is the third take of this video. I could be spending the time that I'm spending on this video, and then I've got to go back and I have to plug into my solar because my battery's about to die, and upload it, which is going to take 2 hours of me hovering around the phone, you know, hanging out near it, and then I've got to upload it to Patreon and done. So that's going to take time. I I could spend that time going around and tidying up the place. But then again, I've got to carry out the composting toilet buckets. I've got to get more water out of my rain catchment system. I've got to take the compost out, and then I got to go down to the orchard and finish up what we worked on yesterday, spread some more mulch, cut some more briars and weeds out of the way, and get that done before all the chiggers show up, and I won't want to be out there. Or I could go pick up the place, right? So how does that tie? It's priorities on what you care about. Focus on what's important. That's what I do. I mean, you know, I try to live what I preach. I'm trying not to be two-faced, and when I am, I tell y'all. You know, I say, this is a good idea, but I don't do it. I ain't got time to worry about stuff like that I really can't affect. I don't have time or the inclination beyond just general knowledge. Like, you know, I spent about 45 minutes today looking at grand solar minimum. I spent about maybe an hour looking at the Earth, whatever they call that thing, where the, you know, the crust of the Earth spins around, polar shift or something. I spent a little bit of time watching Stephen Greer and the guy from Blink 182 talk about aliens. But you know, for me that was like, okay, I understand what they're saying sort of in general. I don't have time to make this my life's work. You know, I'm about serving the Father. I'm about, you know, being a pastor, leading a community, trying to help people who want to move here, who we get a connection with, which is hard to do. And I've been getting a lot more email to that degree coming my way. I'm trying to run a homestead. I'm trying to get things finished. You know, I'm still living in an unfinished house. It's priorities. What are you going to spend your priorities on? I do think something is coming, clearly. I think massive changes are coming to our life. I hope I live through them. And I'm taking steps to ensure I do. But to focus on one thing over another, doesn't matter. Store food. Have a lot of food. Have the ability to grow more food. Yeah, but if it's grand solar minimum, you're not going to be able to grow anything. Yeah, but if it's not, I will, and where are you? Well, if the Earth shifts around and you're at the North Pole, yeah, good luck growing beans, man. You know, if the Earth shifts around, I'm on the equator, check it out. I'll have double, triple cropping. What do you want to focus on, man? What do you want to focus on? Focus on taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, putting yourself in the best position you can put yourself into based on your, not mine, not Joel Skousen, not any of these other people's idea of what you need to do. You need to take in the information you need to take in, make your own assessment, and then start acting on it. You know, there comes a time, I had a friend who taught me paralysis by analysis, that phrase, because he kind of was paralyzed by his own analysis of things. He would think and double think and rethink and come around the corner and think, and he wouldn't move. Do some analysis, make some plans, but then execute them. Get busy. If you know for a fact you are not leaving Connecticut, I just picked that out. I don't think I've ever been to Connecticut. You know for a fact you're not leaving. Okay, then it really doesn't matter that Pastor Joe Fox says, you know, he thinks Yah is calling people to the Ozarks. You can tune that part out. What are you doing about where you live now? Make it good. Make it ready. Get ready for what you think is coming. And again, and I guess I'll end with this, basic to intermediate preparedness, man, that covers a lot of problems. Having a robust medical kit and the skill sets to use it, man, that can take care of a lot of problems. Having a goodly supply of food and the ability to make more solves a lot of problems. Having your water or emergency water sorted out. Having some protection and some skills to do that. You don't need to be a ninja. You don't need to be some militia guy. Just know how to take care of yourself and your family. Do what you can do with what you got where you're at. And stop stressing. Stressing is bad. It hurts. I know. The fine point. Actually, stress can be a blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know. But in general, people who stress about things, it's a negative emotion, and you shouldn't worry about it. Get out there, get busy, enjoy the good life, enjoy things. I gave a sermon, Shofar Mountain, the YouTube site, last week, and I encouraged the people to start spending some alone time with the Father, just listening. Quiet your mind. Listen. Slow down. Simplify. Take care of what's really important. And don't stress and fall for the doomer porn. All right. I care about y'all. I'll see you out there.